I'm going to make a longer video on this tomorrow, but I just spent the past 6 hours reading through hundreds of declassified CIA name traces where when there's a high-profile media event, mainstream media publication alleges that a particular individual is connected to the CIA, and the CIA routinely runs a name trace in order to determine whether or not the allegation is true or not, so that the Director of Central Intelligence and senior leadership knows that whether the rumors swirling around are true or false. There's no name trace. We don't even know if a name trace was done at CIA on Jeffrey Epstein. And it's inconceivable. It's inconceivable that no name trace would have been done. This is a guy who personally negotiated the transfer of a CIA proprietary airline to the business he had power of attorney over in 1995. This is a guy who personally had the State Department as his landlord after the U.S. government seized a residence in New York City. This is a guy who was widely alleged to, quote, belong to intelligence as the reason for his high-profile sweetheart plea deal. The idea that the CIA would not have ever run a name trace when they do it on routinely. I've read like hundreds of these tonight. Random, like Rolling Stone will accuse some random civilian of being connected to the CIA. And they'll run a name trace. They'll say, hey, the Rolling Stone just accused, this guy of being tied to the CIA. For our internal awareness, let's run a name trace to see if those allegations are true. What's so crazy is in the Justice Department OPR report in November 2020, where Alex Acosta is asked about Epstein's ties to intelligence, and they ask the question the wrong way, by the way, but we don't even know what they ask because we have the transcript. There's a one-paragraph description that says, and we believe it would be highly unlikely if Epstein had intelligence ties because if he did, defense counsel would have told us. And of course, we know in that case, defense counsel arranged private meetings with Alex Acosta, and Alex Acosta's inbound emails all got deleted, 11 months worth, beginning with the start of the investigation. But why would DOJ OPR, why would they say it's highly unlikely that Epstein has intelligence ties? Because if he did, defense counsel would have told us. Why wouldn't you task the CIA to do a name trace on Epstein and get all CIA files on Epstein so that you can determine whether, you can forensically determine whether Epstein has at least U.S. intelligence ties? Why would you take 21 months to prepare this 248-page report, where like the central question is whether or not the plea deal happened because he belongs to intelligence, and you don't even query the CIA to do a name trace for their files on him, despite him having a 40-year history of working around the CIA between his extremely high-profile clients who were actively doing CIA work, like Adnan Khashoggi and the whole ilk, to the Southern Air Transport story. That was a literal CIA proprietary airline that Jeffrey Epstein brokered to come to Jeffrey Epstein's domicile explicitly to service Jeffrey Epstein's company. They obviously did a name trace on Epstein. They do it on total randos of no political significance, or almost no, when they pop up in the news. They would have done a name trace at least in 2006 with the first indictment. Definitely, Alex Acosta had to step down as Secretary of Labor, the head of the Department of Labor, a cabinet-level position, had to resign in 2019 over allegations that he protected Epstein because he belonged to intelligence, and the CIA never even ran a name trace? I don't believe that. But what's crazy is the Justice Department didn't even ask when they did their own internal investigation. Or maybe they did and they didn't include it in the report. There's another reason that Pam Bondi has to get the meta files around the DOJ OPR. Go straight to the CIA Office of General Counsel, see what was actually queried. How can you write a paragraph like it's highly unlikely because defense counsel would have told us? When you've got the files, all you got to do is ask for them. 25-30% of these name traces I've been reading start with the Justice Department or an Inspector General asking for the name trace. Sometimes they're unilaterally done. Out of morbid curiosity, it seems sometimes. Anyway, I'm going to make a much longer on this video on this tomorrow, but like after all these years, after all this time, why don't we have a declassified CIA name trace on Jeffrey Epstein?